The town of Red Hollow was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that made people nervous, because everyone knew something bad was about to happen, and in the middle of the dusty main street stood a young woman named Emma, her hands shaking, her eyes filled with fear, yet her back still straight as she faced the richest man anyone had ever seen, a cold and powerful millionaire named William Carter, who had arrived in town only 2 days ago and already changed everything. Emma was poor, everyone knew that, and she had lived her whole life in Red Hollow, working hard, helping others, never causing trouble, but now the whole town believed she was guilty of a crime she did not commit, and they all waited for William to decide her fate because he owned the land, the law, and almost everyone's loyalty. The wind blew softly, moving Emma's hair across her face as she looked up at him, and in that moment, her strength broke, her voice trembling as she dropped to her knees and whispered, "I beg you, just make it quick," and those words cut through the air like a knife, making the crowd gasp and fall silent. William had planned this moment carefully, or at least he thought he had, but when he heard her words and saw the fear mixed with honesty in her eyes, his body froze, his heart beating in a way it had not for many years, because something about her felt painfully familiar. He had seen many people beg before, but never like this, never with such quiet dignity, and as he looked at Emma, memories from his past came rushing back, memories of loss, regret, and a promise he once failed to keep. The townspeople whispered angrily, some shouting for justice, others turning away because they could not watch, while Emma closed her eyes, ready for the worst, unaware that the man standing before her was fighting a battle inside his own heart. William took a slow step forward, his expensive boots pressing into the dirt, and Emma opened her eyes again, surprised to see confusion on his face instead of anger, and for a brief second their eyes met, and in that moment something strange and unexpected passed between them, something warm, something dangerous, something that felt like the start of love in the worst possible place. William's hand lifted slightly, and the town leaned in, sure that the end had come, but then he stopped, his fingers tightening as if holding back a storm, and instead of giving an order, he asked a simple question in a calm but shaken voice, "What is your name?" And the crowd reacted with shock, because no one expected kindness, especially not from a man like him. Emma answered softly, "Emma," and the way she said it stayed with him, echoing in his mind, making him feel something he did not want to feel, something he thought he had buried long ago. The sun climbed higher, sweat rolled down faces, and time seemed to slow as William stood there, silent, staring at the woman who had begged him to end her life quickly, while deep inside him a decision began to form, one that would shock the entire town and change both their lives forever. But before anyone could understand what was happening, William raised his hand again, not in anger, but as a signal, and said words that no one in Red Hollow would ever forget, leaving the town frozen in disbelief and Emma's heart pounding with a strange mix of fear and hope. The crowd did not move when William raised his hand, because no one in Red Hollow had ever seen him hesitate before, and that silence gave Emma a strange feeling she could not explain, as if the air itself was waiting for something important to happen. William looked at her again, not like a judge looking at a criminal, but like a man trying to understand a story he had never heard, and he asked her to stand up, which caused angry whispers to rise around them, because the town believed she did not deserve even that small mercy. Emma slowly got to her feet, her legs weak, her heart racing, and as she stood before him, William noticed how thin she was, how tired her eyes looked, and how she still tried to hold herself with quiet pride, and something inside him softened even more. He asked her where she was born, and when she answered that she had been born right here in Red Hollow, he felt another sharp pull in his chest, because years ago he had left a town just like this, leaving behind someone he once loved and never stopped thinking about. The townspeople shouted that he was wasting time, that justice had to be done, but William raised his voice for the first time, telling them to be silent, and the sound of his command shocked everyone, including Emma, who looked at him with wide eyes, seeing not cruelty, but control and pain. He walked slowly around her, not like a hunter, but like someone searching for the truth, and he asked her again why she believed she deserved such a quick end, and her answer was simple and honest, saying that she was tired of suffering, tired of being blamed, and tired of fighting alone, and those words stayed with him because he knew that feeling too well. As the sun burned down on the street, William's thoughts became louder than the voices around him, reminding him of the woman he once loved, a woman who had looked at him the same way Emma did now, with fear and trust mixed together, and he wondered if fate was giving him a second chance, or testing him in the cruelest way possible. Emma noticed the change in his eyes, the way his hard expression cracked just a little, and for the first time since that morning, she felt a small spark of hope, even though she tried to push it away, knowing hope could hurt more than fear. William finally stopped in front of her, close enough for her to see that his hands were shaking slightly, and in a low voice he told her that he did not believe she was guilty, and the words hit her like a wave, making her breath catch and her eyes fill with tears she had been holding back for too long. The crowd exploded in anger, calling him a liar and a fool, but William did not look at them, because his focus was only on Emma, and in that moment, something fragile but powerful connected them, something that felt like the beginning of love, even though danger surrounded them from every side. He told the town that the truth would come out, and until it did, Emma was under his protection, and when he offered his hand to help her step away from the center of the street, Emma hesitated only for a second before placing her trembling hand in his, and the touch sent a quiet shock through both of them, sealing a bond neither of them fully understood yet. As they walked away together, whispers followed them like shadows, and Emma knew her life had just changed forever, while William knew that by choosing her, he had just started a fight he might not win, and as they disappeared into the crowd, unseen eyes watched them closely, ready to make sure this story did not end in peace. The walk away from the crowd felt longer than it was, and with every step Emma took beside William, her heart beat faster, not only from fear but from confusion, because she could not understand why a man like him would protect someone like her, and yet his hand remained steady as he guided her toward the old building near the edge of town. Inside, the noise of the street faded, replaced by heavy silence, and Emma finally pulled her hand back, standing a few steps away as if afraid to cross a line that could not be undone, while William turned to face her, his strong face still serious but no longer cold. He asked her to sit, and though her body was tired, her mind was racing, filled with questions she was too scared to ask, so she stayed quiet, watching him carefully as he poured water into a small metal cup and handed it to her, a simple act of kindness that made her hands shake even more. Emma drank slowly, then told him the truth about that night everyone blamed her for, how she had been helping a sick neighbor when the crime happened, how no one believed her because she was poor and alone, and as she spoke, William listened without interrupting, his eyes never leaving her face, his heart growing heavier with every word. He could see she was telling the truth, not only in her voice but in the way she spoke, without anger, without excuses, and it reminded him again of the woman from his past, the one he failed to save when he chose money over love, and that memory cut deep. William finally spoke, telling Emma that he knew what it felt like to be judged without being heard, and for the first time she saw pain in his eyes, real pain, the kind that does not fade with time or wealth, and without thinking, she told him softly that not all wounds could be hidden by power, a sentence so simple yet so true that it struck him harder than any insult ever had. Outside, unseen by them, a man stood watching through a broken window, his eyes dark with anger, a man who had his own reasons to hate Emma and even more reasons to fear what William might discover, and as he quietly walked away, trouble followed him like a shadow. Inside the building, the air felt heavy but warm, and William told Emma that he would find proof of her innocence, no matter the cost, but she shook her head, warning him that the town would turn against him, that people here did not forgive easily, and that loving the wrong person could destroy everything. Yet even as she said those words, her voice softened, because part of her already cared, even though she knew she should not. William stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel his presence, and he told her that some things were worth losing everything for, and the honesty in his voice made her look up, meeting his eyes, and in that moment, fear and hope mixed together, creating a quiet bond neither of them could deny. Before either of them could say more, a loud sound came from outside, followed by shouting, and William knew the town was already moving against them, while Emma realized that by accepting his help, she had stepped into a danger far greater than death. But as William opened the door and stood in front of her protectively, she understood something else too, that whatever happened next, she was no longer alone, and that the love beginning between them might be the very thing that would either save them both or destroy everything they had left. The noise outside grew louder with every second, and when William opened the door, the angry voices of the town rushed in like a storm, making Emma's heart sink as she realized the danger was no longer far away but standing right in front of them. Men and women filled the street, their faces hard, their trust already broken, and at the front stood the town leader, a tall man with cold eyes, who pointed at Emma and shouted that justice could not wait any longer. William stepped forward, placing himself between the crowd and Emma, his body calm but his voice strong as he told them to step back, reminding them that no one had proven her guilt yet, but the town did not want truth, only someone to blame. Emma watched from behind him, fear shaking her hands, yet something new rose in her chest too, something warm and painful, because no one had ever stood up for her like this before, and the thought that he was risking everything for her made her heart ache. The town leader laughed and warned William that love made men weak, and those words struck deep, because William knew they were true, yet he did not move, because for the first time in his life, he felt strong by caring, not weak. Emma suddenly stepped forward, her voice soft but clear, telling William he did not have to do this, that she did not want him to lose his power or his life because of her, and hearing that broke something inside him, because even now, she was thinking of him before herself. He turned to her and told her that some choices were not about safety or money, but about doing what was right, and the way he looked at her made her breath catch, because in his eyes she saw respect, trust, and a love that was growing faster than either of them expected. The crowd grew restless, pushing closer, and one man raised a gun, his hands shaking, and time seemed to slow as Emma realized this was the moment she had feared, the moment she had begged to be quick, but instead of fear, she felt calm, because William was standing there, refusing to move. William lifted his hand again, not in surrender, but in command, and told the man to lower the gun, promising that the truth would be revealed before sunset. But the town leader shouted that lies had gone on long enough, and suddenly a gunshot rang through the air, echoing across the street. Emma screamed, her eyes wide, thinking William had been hit, but he was still standing, untouched, as the bullet struck the ground nearby, sending dust into the air, and the shock of it left everyone frozen. William turned slowly, his face dark with anger, and warned the town that if they crossed this line again, they would regret it, and for the first time, fear appeared in their eyes, because they realized he was not just rich, but powerful in ways they did not fully understand. As the crowd pulled back slightly, William took Emma's hand again and led her away, his grip firm, and though danger still surrounded them, Emma felt a strange sense of peace walking beside him, knowing their bond had grown stronger in the face of fear. Behind them, hidden in the crowd, the same watching man from earlier smiled quietly, because he knew the town was close to breaking, and love, he believed, would be the easiest weapon to destroy them both, setting the stage for a final test neither Emma nor William was ready to face. The town did not calm after the gunshot, but something had changed, because fear had replaced anger in many eyes, and as William led Emma away from the street, whispers followed them like a dark wind, spreading stories faster than truth ever could. They stopped at William's large house on the hill, a place no one in Red Hollow had ever entered before, and Emma felt small as she stepped inside, surrounded by space, light, and silence, so different from her hard life, yet William did not act like a king in a castle, but like a man carrying a heavy weight. He asked her to sit and rest, telling her she was safe there, but Emma shook her head, saying no place was safe while the town believed she was guilty, and her words made him realize how deep the damage already was. William then did something no one expected, something that would soon shock the entire town, as he called his lawyer and ordered him to bring every record, every witness, and every name connected to the crime, promising to reopen the case fully and publicly, even if it ruined his reputation. Emma listened in silence, her heart torn, because while his actions filled her with hope, they also filled her with fear, knowing that the closer they came to the truth, the more dangerous things would become. When William ended the call, he turned to her and told her that whatever happened next, he would not step back, and for the first time, Emma allowed herself to cry, not from fear, but from relief, because no one had ever fought for her like this before. As night fell, they talked quietly, sharing small pieces of their past, and Emma learned that William had once been poor too, that he had lost someone he loved by choosing money and power, and that regret had followed him ever since, while William learned that Emma had grown up alone, learning to survive without protection or comfort, and with every word exchanged, the distance between them slowly faded. Outside the house, unseen eyes watched again, the same man who had followed them before, now filled with worry, because the truth William was chasing could destroy everything he had worked so hard to hide. Back inside, Emma warned William that the town leader was dangerous and would not give up easily, but William surprised her by saying that sometimes the only way to break fear was to face it openly, and he promised that tomorrow, he would stand in front of the whole town and announce his decision. That night, sleep did not come easily to either of them, because love and danger shared the same space, and when morning arrived, William walked Emma back into town, holding her hand without hiding it, and the sight alone caused shock to spread like fire. Standing in the center of Red Hollow, William made his unthinkable choice, declaring that Emma was free under his protection and that anyone who stood against her stood against him, a statement that left the town frozen in disbelief. Some people turned away, some shouted, and some looked ashamed, but Emma felt her knees weaken, because she understood the cost of what he had just done, and she whispered that she never asked him to sacrifice everything for her. William looked at her and answered simply that love was not about asking, but about choosing, and as their eyes met, Emma knew that no matter how this story ended, the choice he made that day had already changed both their lives forever, even as danger quietly moved closer, ready to strike when they least expected it. The town square felt heavier than ever as William stood beside Emma, because his public choice had pushed everything to the edge, and now there was no way back, only forward into truth or disaster. The town leader stepped forward with a hard smile, claiming William's words meant nothing without proof, and the crowd slowly agreed, because fear still lived inside them, feeding on doubt and old lies. William stayed calm and announced that the truth would be shown before the sun set, and he ordered his men to bring forward the witnesses he had found during the night, including the sick neighbor Emma had helped on the night of the crime, a man many believed would never speak again. When the old man appeared, weak but alive, the crowd grew silent, and Emma's heart pounded as he confirmed her story, saying she had been with him the whole time, saving his life while the crime happened elsewhere. Murmurs spread through the crowd, and for the first time, doubt turned against the town leader, whose face darkened as he realized control was slipping away. William then revealed documents showing false statements and missing money, all pointing toward one man, the same watcher who had followed them from the shadows, and as guards moved to seize him, the man panicked and pulled a gun, shouting that Emma had ruined everything. A shot rang out, and this time William fell to the ground, pain cutting through his side, while Emma screamed and ran to him, holding him as blood stained his coat. The crowd froze in horror as the attacker was captured, and Emma pressed her hands against William's wound, crying and begging him to stay awake, realizing in that moment how deeply she loved him, not for his power, but for his heart. William smiled weakly and told her that he was not leaving, that he still had promises to keep, and his words gave her strength as help finally arrived. The truth was now clear to everyone, and shame spread through the town as they realized how close they had come to killing an innocent woman, while almost losing the man who had risked everything to save her. William survived the injury, but the wound left him weak, forcing him to rest for days, during which Emma stayed by his side, caring for him, speaking softly, and holding his hand, and in those quiet moments, their love grew stronger than fear ever had. When William finally stood again, pale but steady, the town gathered to apologize, offering forgiveness and support, but both Emma and William knew some wounds would take longer to heal. Still, something had changed, because truth had replaced lies, and love had replaced cruelty, and as William looked at Emma, he knew the final test was not over yet, because rebuilding trust was harder than winning a fight, and the future would ask even more of them, but for the first time, they were ready to face it together. The days after the truth came out were slow and quiet, as if the town of Red Hollow was learning how to breathe again, and Emma walked its streets with mixed feelings. Because even though people now looked at her with regret instead of hate, the memories of fear had not faded yet. William was still recovering, his strength returning little by little, and Emma stayed close to him, helping him walk, bringing him food, and sitting beside him in silence when words felt too heavy, and during those moments, love grew naturally, without promises or grand words, just care and understanding. The town leader, now broken and ashamed, stepped down, and the people began to fix what they had allowed to happen, repairing homes, helping neighbors, and slowly changing the way they treated one another, while William made a choice that surprised everyone by giving power back to the town instead of keeping it for himself. He told them that fear had ruled Red Hollow for too long, and that real strength came from fairness and kindness, not control, and as people listened, Emma saw a different side of him, a man who had learned from his pain and chosen love over pride. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, William and Emma stood together on the edge of town, watching the sky turn gold, and Emma finally spoke the words she had been holding inside, telling him that she was afraid to love him, because love had already almost cost her life. William listened quietly, then told her that love was never safe, but it was the only thing that made life worth the risk, and his honesty touched her deeply. He did not ask her to stay, did not promise her a perfect future, but simply told her that whatever path she chose, he would respect it, and that freedom meant more to him now than control ever had. Emma looked at him, seeing not the millionaire, not the powerful man, but someone who had stood still when he could have ended everything, someone who had chosen mercy when hate was easier, and in that moment, she knew her answer. She took his hand, not because she needed saving, but because she wanted to walk beside him, and that simple choice felt stronger than any vow. Over time, Red Hollow changed, becoming a place of second chances, and Emma became a symbol of courage, while William became a reminder that people could change, no matter how lost they once were. They did not rush their future, choosing instead to build it slowly, learning each other's fears, healing old wounds, and finding joy in small moments, like shared meals, quiet laughter, and peaceful mornings. When the townspeople gathered one last time to thank them both, Emma spoke softly, saying that forgiveness had saved her more than power ever could, and William stood beside her, knowing that the greatest thing he had ever gained was not respect or wealth, but love. As they walked away together, leaving the crowd behind, the town watched them go, understanding that the story that began with fear and begging had ended with choice and hope, and though the past would never disappear, it no longer controlled them. In the end, Red Hollow would always remember the day a woman begged for a quick end and a man froze instead, choosing love, and that unthinkable choice became the reason two broken lives found a future they never believed they deserved.